Inglewood, California. Inglewood is a city in southwestern Los Angeles County, California in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. As of the 2010 U.S. Census, the city had a population of 109,673. It was incorporated on February 14, 1908. The city is in the South Bay region of Los Angeles County. Los Angeles Stadium at Hollywood Park is currently under construction in the city and, when completed around 2020, will be the new home of both the National Football League's Los Angeles Rams and Los Angeles Chargers. The city is also close to Los Angeles International Airport. History. Pre-American era. The earliest residents of what is now Inglewood were Native Americans who used the natural springs in today's Edward Vincent Jr. Park, known for most of its history as Centanella Park. Local historian Gladys Waddingham wrote that these springs took the name Centanella from the hills that rose gradually around them and which allowed ranchers to watch over their herds, thus the name Centanellas or Sentinels. Unpaged. Waddingham traced the written history of Inglewood back to the original settlers of Los Angeles in 1781, one of whom was the Spanish soldier José Manuel Orchado Machado, a 23-year-old muleteer from Los Alamos in Sinaloa. These settlers, she wrote, were ordered by the officials of the San Gabriel Mission to graze their animals on the ocean side of Los Angeles in order not to infringe on mission lands. As a result, the settlers, or pobladores, drove some of their cattle to the lush pasture lands near Centenella Springs, and the first construction there was done by Ignacio Avila, who received a permit in 1822 to build a corral and hut for his herders unpaged. Later Avila constructed a three-room adobe on a slight rise overlooking the creek that ran from Centenella Springs all the way to the ocean. According to the LAOK website, this adobe was built where the present baseball field is in the park. It no longer exists. In 1834, Ignacio Machado, one of the sons of José Machado, built the Centanella Adobe unpaged, which sits on a rise above the present 405 San Diego Freeway and is used American Samoa, the headquarters of the Centenella Valley Historical Society. 2 years later, Waddingham writes, Ignacio was granted the 2,220-acre, 9.0 square kilometers, Rancho Aguage de la Centanella, even though this land had already been claimed by Avila unpaged. American era. Through the years, Daniel Freeman acquired the rancho and was a founder of the Centenella Inglewood Land Company in 1887, which developed the city. Inglewood Park Cemetery, a widely used cemetery for the entire region, was founded in 1905. The city has been home to the Hollywood Park racetrack from 1938 to 2013, one of the premier horse racing venues in the United States. Foster's Freeze, the first soft-serve ice cream chain in California, was founded by George Foster in 1946 in Inglewood. Inglewood was named an All-America City by the National Civic League in 1989 and yet again recently in 2009 for its visible progress. On January 12, 2016, Inglewood was selected to be the home of the Los Angeles Rams of the National Football League. Ku Klux Klan. Ku Klux Klan activities in Inglewood during the 20th century were highlighted by the 1922 arrest and trial of 37 men, most of them masked, for a nighttime raid on a suspected bootlegger and his family. The raid led to the shooting death of one of the culprits, an Inglewood police officer. A jury returned a not guilty verdict for all defendants who completed the trial. It was this scandal, according to the Los Angeles Times, that eventually led to the outlawing of the Klan in California. The Klan had a chapter in Inglewood as late as October 1931. African American influence. No blacks had ever lived in Inglewood, Gladys Waddingham wrote 59, but by 1960, they lived in great numbers along its eastern borders. This came to the great displeasure of the predominantly white residents already residing in Inglewood. In 1960, the census counted only 29 Negroes among Inglewood's 63,390 residents. Not a single black child attended the city's schools. Real estate agents refused to show homes to blacks. A rumored curfew kept blacks off the streets at night. Inglewood was a prime target because of its previous history of restrictions. Fair housing and school busing were the main problems of 1964. The schools were not prepared to handle racial incidents, even though those that occurred were very minor. Adults held many heated community meetings, since the blacks objected to busing as much as did the whites. 61 In 1969, an organization called Morningside Neighbors changed its name to Inglewood Neighbors in the hope of promoting more integration. 63. On February 3, 1969, Harold P. Marrett became Inglewood's first black police officer, who is of Louisiana Creole ancestry. A full year later, Jimmy Lee Worsham became the second. He was followed by Barbara Harris, the first black female officer, then Otis Hendricks, Melvin Lovelace, and Eugene Lindsay. The seventh black officer in the history of the city of Inglewood was James T. Butts, Jr. He became Inglewood's first black motorcycle traffic enforcement officer, first black lieutenant, captain, and only black deputy chief in the history of the department. Butts left Inglewood in September 1991 at the age of 38 to become the first person of color to command the Santa Monica Police Department as chief of police, and the youngest ever to do so. 20 years later, on February 1, 2011, Butts returned to Inglewood by being elected as its fourth black mayor. On July 22, 1970, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Max F. Deutz ordered Inglewood schools to desegregate in response to a suit filed by 19 parents. At least since 1965, said Deutz, the Inglewood School Board had been aware of a growing influx of black families into its eastern areas but had done nothing about the polarization of its pupils into an eastern black area and a western white one. On August 31, he rejected an appeal by 4 parents who said the school board was not responsible for the segregation but that the blacks selected their places of residence by voluntary choice. The first black principal among the 18 Inglewood schools was Peter Butler at La Tijera Elementary. 66 And in 1971, Waddingham wrote, stormy racial meetings in 1971 included a charge by some real estate men in the overflowing Crozier Auditorium that the Human Relations Commission was acting like the Gestapo. 67 In that year, Lloyd Sterling Webb, president of Inglewood Neighbors, became the first black office holder when voters elected him to the school board. In 1972, Curtis Tucker Sr. was appointed as the first black city council member. 69 That year, composer Leroy Hurt, an African-American, took the baton of the Inglewood Symphony Orchestra and continued to work with it for 20 years. 75 Edward Vincent became Inglewood's first black mayor in 1983. In that decade, whites left the city in increasing numbers, and Inglewood became the first city in California to declare the birthday of Martin Luther King, Jr. as a holiday. 76. Rise of Latino population. The 1990 census showed that Hispanics in Inglewood had increased by 134% since 1980, the largest jump in the South Bay. Economic factors apparently played a role in where new arrivals settled, said David Heer, a USC professor of sociology and associate director of the university's Population Research Laboratory. Housing is generally less expensive here than elsewhere, and I would say that they receive a warmer welcome here, said Norm Cravens, assistant city manager in Inglewood, where the Anglo population dropped from nearly 21% in 1980 to 8.5% in 1990. In the 2000 census, blacks made up 47% of the city's residents, 53,060 people, and Hispanics comprised 46%, 51,829, but the Census Bureau estimated that in 2007 the percentage of blacks had declined to 41%, 48,252, and that of Hispanics of any race were at 52.5%, 61,847. The white population declined from 19%, 21,505, to 17.7%, 20,853. But in that year, only one of the city's 5 city council members was Latino, Jose Fernandez. There were no Latinos on the 5-member Board of Education. Geography. Location and area. According to the United States Census Bureau, the city has a total area of 9.1 square miles, 24 square kilometers. Downtown Inglewood is 4.15 miles, 6.68 kilometers, from Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. It is part of the Los Angeles Long Beach Anaheim, CA Metropolitan Statistical Area. Landmarks. The Forum was built in 1967 and designed by architect Charles Luckman, who also designed Madison Square Garden. The Forum was intended to evoke the Roman Forum in Rome. For decades the Forum was one of LA's biggest concert venues. Elvis Presley, Led Zeppelin, and the Jackson 5 were among the superstars to headline the arena. The Forum also achieved its greatest fame as the home of the NBA's Los Angeles Lakers and the NHL's Los Angeles Kings. In 1999, both teams moved to the Staples Center and the Forum was sold to the Faithful Central Bible Church, which used it for Sunday services and rented it out periodically for concerts or sporting events. In 2012, the Forum was purchased by the Madison Square Garden Company, owners of New York's Madison Square Garden, for $23.5 million. Message announced plans to spend $50 million to refurbish and renovate the arena for use as a world-class concert venue. The fabulous Forum presented by Chase reopened on January 15, 2014 with the first of 6 historic performances by the Eagles. The reinvention of the Forum has created the largest indoor performance venue in the country designed with a focus on music and entertainment. On February 24, 2015, the Inglewood City Council approved plans for the construction of a National Football League capacity stadium and, later named Los Angeles Stadium at Hollywood Park, with a 5-0 unanimous vote to combine the 60-acre plot of land with the larger Hollywood Park development and rezone the area to include sports/entertainment capabilities. This essentially cleared the way for developers to begin construction on the venue as planned in December 2015. On January 13, 2016, one day after the NFL approved of the Rams' return to Los Angeles, construction began on the Inglewood site. Climate. According to the Köppen Climate Classification System, CSB on the coast, CSA on the inland, Inglewood has a Mediterranean climate. Demographics. 2010 Census. The 2010 United States Census reported that Inglewood had a population of 109,673. The population density was 12,062.1 people per square mile, 4,657.2/km superscript 2. The racial makeup of Inglewood was 55,449, 50.6%. Hispanics or Latinos, of any race, 48,165, 43.9%. African American, 25,563, 23.3%. White, 2.9%. Non-Hispanic white, 751, 0.7%. Native American, 1,484, 1.5%. Asian, 350, 0.3%. Pacific Islander, 28,860, 26.3%, from other races, and 4,502, 4.1%, from 2 or more races. The census reported that 108,171 people, 98.6% of the population, lived in households, 987, 0.9%, lived in non-institutionalized group quarters, and 515, 0.5%, were institutionalized. There were 36,389 households, out of which 15,315, 42.1%, had children under the age of 18 living in them, 13,095, 36.0%, were married couples living together, 8,987, 24.7%, had a female householder with no husband present, and 2,937, 8.1%, had a male householder with no wife present. There were 2,318, 6.4%, unmarried partnerships, and 234, 0.6%, same-sex partnerships, and 9,346 households, 25.7%, were made up of individuals, and 2,776, 7.6%, had someone living alone who was 65 years of age or older. The average household size was 2.97. There were 25,019 families, 68.8% of all households. The average family size was 3.59. The age distribution was spread out with 29,293 people, 26.7%, under the age of 18, 11,853 people, 10.8%, aged 18 to 24, 31,650 people, 28.9%, aged 25 to 44, 26,621 people, 24.3%, aged 45 to 64, and 10,256 people, 9.4%, who were 65 years of age or older. The median age was 33.4 years. For every 100 females, there were 90.6 males. For every 100 females age 18 and over, there were 86.8 males. There were 38,429 housing units at an average density of 4,226.5 per square mile, 1,631.9/km superscript 2, of which 13,447, 37.0%, were owner-occupied, and 22,942, 63.0%, were occupied by renters. The homeowner vacancy rate was 1.5%, the rental vacancy rate was 5.5%, while 43,040 people, 39.2% of the population, lived in owner-occupied housing units, and 65,131 people, 59.4%, lived in rental housing units. According to the 2010 United States Census, Inglewood had a median household income of $43,394, with 22.4% of the population living below the federal poverty line. 2006 survey. Inglewood's population of 129,900 in 2006 was relatively youthful, with a median age of 31, compared to 36 in the nation as a whole. 11% of its residents were under 5 years of age, as against 7% in the rest of the country. Some 8% were 65 or older, versus 12% elsewhere. It was a city of renters squeezing into a limited amount of space. Of Inglewood's 37,562 occupied housing units, houses and apartments, just 39% were owned by the people who lived in them, compared to 67% in the U.S. as whole. The other units were rented out. Only 5% of its housing units were vacant, much less than the 12% across the country. The number of people living in each unit was about 3.7 persons, versus 2.7 elsewhere. Family size was 3.9 people, compared to 3.2. It was estimated that 18% of Inglewood families had incomes below the poverty level, about twice that of the country at large, 9%. About 17% of Inglewood's residents had earned a bachelor's degree or higher, versus 27% across the country. 29% of the city's population were foreign-born, compared to 13% in the nation as a whole. Mapping LA. In 2009, the Los Angeles Times's Mapping LA project supplied these neighborhood statistics based on the 2000 census. The population was 112,482, or 12,330 people per square mile, among the highest densities for the South Bay and among the highest densities for the county. The percentage of African Americans was high for the county, and the population was moderately diverse. Median household income was $46,574, low for both the South Bay and for the county. The median age was 29, young for the county. The percentage of residents aged 10 or under was among the county's highest. 3 people, on the average, lived in each household, high for the South Bay but about average for the county. There was a higher percentage of families headed by single parents than elsewhere in the county. The percentage of veterans who served during 1975-89 and 1990-99 was among the county's highest. Asterisk, the diversity index measures the probability that any two residents, chosen at random, would be of different ethnicities. If all residents are of the same ethnic group, it's 0. If half are from one group and half from another, it's 0.50. Transportation. Streets and highways. A Grand Avenue at least 150 feet wide was being built in late 1887 from the end of Figueroa Street in Los Angeles to the new town of Inglewood on the Centanella Ranch, to be planted with a border of tropical trees, making it one of the handsomest 5-mile drives on the coast. Public transportation. A $3,000 train station, described as a natty and attractive building, was constructed in 1887 at the temporary end of the Ballona Railroad line outward bound from Los Angeles. The tracks were to continue west through the Centenella Ranch to the ocean. The 18.03-mile line was opened for business on September 7, 1887, with stops, from northeast to southwest, at Ballona Junction, Nadeau Park, Baldwin, Slauson, Wildson, Hyde Park, Inglewood, Danville, Mesmer, and Port Ballona. A train left Los Angeles at 9:15 a.m. on the 1-hour journey and returned from Port Ballona at 4 p.m. In that year, the Los Angeles Herald noted that Inglewood was at the junction of two railroads, one branch going to Ballona Harbor and the other to the beautiful seaside resort, Redondo Beach. 2 trains a day now pass Inglewood Station. The Centanella Inglewood Company used a 4-horse coach to bring prospective buyers from Los Angeles, leaving at 9:30 a.m. and returning at 2 p.m. Being planned were frequent fast trains between Los Angeles and Inglewood over the California Southern Railroad. Sports. Professional sports. Inglewood will once again become home to professional sports teams starting in 2020 when the Los Angeles Rams and Los Angeles Chargers football teams move into the $4.9 billion Los Angeles Stadium at Hollywood Park. The stadium will host Super Bowl LVI in 2022. The Los Angeles Lakers and Los Angeles Kings played their home games at the Forum until the completion of the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles. The Lakers share the Staples Center with their NBA rival Los Angeles Clippers. During the 2028 Summer Olympics, the opening and closing ceremonies will be held at the Los Angeles Stadium at Hollywood Park. The venue will also host soccer games during the Olympics, while the grounds outside the stadium will host archery. The Forum will host all the gymnastics events during the games. Neighborhoods. Inglewood consists of 10 neighborhoods which are indicated by symbols on street signs. The neighborhoods are the following areas: Morningside Park, Downtown Inglewood, Fairview Heights, Arbor Village, Holly Park Knolls, Centanella Heights, Sports Village, Century Heights, Inglewood Knolls, and Lock Haven. Crenshaw Imperial. The Crenshaw Imperial District was a later annexation to Inglewood, California. It has its own branch public library and an important shopping center for the area. Also see Inglewood Knolls. Morningside Park. Morningside Park is a commercial district in the eastern part of the city. Though the city of Inglewood does not define the district's boundaries, it may be delineated by Hyde Park on the north, Manchester Square on the east, Century Boulevard on the south and Prairie Avenue on the west. The major streets that run through the area are Manchester and Crenshaw Boulevards. It is 6 miles, 10 kilometers, from Los Angeles International Airport and about 2 miles, 3 kilometers, from the under-construction Los Angeles Stadium at Hollywood Park, the future home of the NFL's Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers. The district is also the location of the Forum, an entertainment venue, and where for 32 years the NBA's Los Angeles Lakers and NHL's Los Angeles Kings played, and the Village at Century Shopping Center. This neighborhood was once the site of the Hollywood Park racetrack. It is also the home to 3 gated communities called Carlton Square, Briarwood Village and the Renaissance. North Inglewood and Fairview Heights. North Inglewood is a neighborhood north of the former Santa Fe Railroad tracks, where the Crenshaw/Lax line will soon be. In 2009, it was reported to be the site of a burgeoning arts scene at East Hyde Park Boulevard and La Brea Avenue. Fairview Heights is a signed area located north of Florence and east of La Brea Avenues. Inglewood Knolls. Situated in the southeastern corner of the city, Inglewood Knolls is a subdivision of tract homes built in 1953-54. It is bordered by Crenshaw Boulevard on the west, 108th St on the north, Spinning Ave on the east, and Imperial Highway on the south. A shopping center on the northeastern quadrant of the intersection of Crenshaw and Imperial was also constructed in the mid-1950s, originally including a food giant grocery store, Thrifty Drug, J.J. Newberry's, and LaShawn's Music Store, among others. Century Park Elementary School on Spinning Ave, although fully within Inglewood city limits, is actually part of the LA School District. Government and politics. Government. Municipal government. The City of Inglewood has a council city manager type of government. The mayor is an elected office and is the chief executive officer, but in all other regards is an equal member of the city council. The current mayor of Inglewood is James T. Butts Jr., who took office after unseating Daniel K. Tabor, who completed the term of Roosevelt Dorn. Inglewood is moving its city council elections to March of 2020 to coincide with the California primary election. The Inglewood Police Department is the city's police department. Inglewood also has the Inglewood Fire Department as well. Federal representation. In the United States House of Representatives, Inglewood is split between California's 37th Congressional District, represented by Democrat Karen Bass, and California's 43rd Congressional District, represented by Democrat Maxine Waters. State representation. In the California State Legislature, Inglewood is in the 35th Senate District, represented by Democrat Stephen Bradford, and in the 62nd Assembly District, represented by Democrat Autumn Burke. Los Angeles County. Inglewood is part of Los Angeles County, for which the government of Los Angeles County is defined and authorized under the California Constitution, California law, and the Charter of the County of Los Angeles. The county government is primarily composed of the elected 5-member Board of Supervisors, other elected offices including the sheriff, district attorney, and assessor, and numerous county departments and entities under the supervision of the chief executive officer. Regional. The city is a member of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. Politics. Inglewood has the highest percentage of registered Democrats of any city in California, with 75.6% of its 48,615 voters registered in May 2009 as Democrats. 7% were registered as Republicans, and 14.1% declined to state a preference. In 2005, the Bay Area Center for Voting Research, a nonpartisan organization in Berkeley, ranked Inglewood as the 6th most liberal city in the United States, after Oakland, California, and just ahead of Newark, New Jersey. Researchers examined voting patterns of 237 American cities with populations over 100,000 and ranked them on liberal and conservative scales. Infrastructure. Federal offices. The United States Postal Service operates post offices in Inglewood. The Hillcrest Inglewood Post Office is its main one. It is located at 300 East Hillcrest Boulevard in downtown Inglewood. And the Morningside Park Post Office at 3212 West 85th Street is the secondary office. The North Inglewood Post Office at 811 North La Brea Avenue was converted to a Dollar Tree in 2013. The county government provides county-wide services such as elections and voter registration, law enforcement, jails, vital records, property records, tax collection, public health, and social services. Fire protection is provided by the Los Angeles County Fire Department Stations 18, 170, 171, and 173. The Los Angeles County Department of Health Services operates the Curtis Tucker Health Center in Inglewood. The city was served by the Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital for more than 5 decades, from 1954 until its closure in 2007. Inglewood is still served and the home to Centanella Hospital Medical Center. Public libraries. The City of Inglewood operates a main library in the city's Civic Center, in addition to a branch in the southeastern corner of the city, near the intersection of Crenshaw and Imperial, and a branch in Morningside Park near the intersection of 85th Street and Crenshaw Boulevard. Education. Public and private schools. Most of Inglewood is served by the Inglewood Unified School District. The district has two zoned high schools, Inglewood High School, Morningside High School, City Honors High School, and an alternative high school, Inglewood Continuation High School, formerly Hillcrest Continuation High School. Some of it is zoned in the Los Angeles Unified School District. LOSD operates one school in the Inglewood city limits, Century Park Elementary. When the Inglewood Union High School District, now known as the Centenella Valley Union High School District, opened in 1905, the Inglewood School District, then only operating primary schools, was within the high school district. The Centenella Valley District received its current name on November 1, 1944. On July 1, 1954, the Inglewood Elementary School District withdrew from the Centenella Valley District, becoming a unified school district. Public charter schools include. Private schools include. See also. Schools history. In 1888, a school district was organized, trustees were elected and a building was chosen. The school opened on May 21 that year on the second floor of a livery stable on Grevillea Avenue between Regent Street and Orchard, today's Florence Avenue, with 17 boys and 16 girls. The first teacher was Minnie Walker, a graduate of Los Angeles State Normal School. The schoolroom, named Bucephalus Hall, after a horse belonging to town founder Daniel Freeman, was also used for community meetings. 6. Meanwhile, a permanent school building was erected on Grevillea Avenue a block to the south, between Regent and Queen. It remained Inglewood's only school until 1911. It was destroyed by an earthquake in 1926 and 26. The Centanella Valley Union High School District was organized in 1904 to bring secondary education to the town. Inglewood High opened in 2 rooms of the school building with 15 students taught by Nina Martin, principal, and Anna McClelland. 4 years later, a new building rose on September 5 acres, 3.8 ha, of land, and the first graduation of 1 boy and 4 girls took place in 1908. 13-14 until 1912 there was a new principal every year at the grammar school, but on May 8 of that year George W. Crozier was named principal, and he held the post for 20 years. The school was renamed in his honor in 1932-20. In 1913, George M. Green was appointed principal of Inglewood Union High School. He retired from that position in 1939-22. In 1914, voters approved bonds for high school improvement. 4 more buildings and a power plant were erected, joined by walks and arcades. The improvement included a 5-room model flat in the Home Economics Building. 9 acres of land were bought at Kelso Avenue and Damask, now Inglewood Avenue, for an experimental agricultural statement, thenceforth known as the farm. There were gardens, an orchard and an alfalfa field. In 1915 Inglewood High won a first-place Los Angeles County prize for its beautiful ivy-covered brick buildings. 24 These buildings were destroyed in 1953 to make room for new ones unpaged. In the mid-1920s, the high school district stretched all the way south to El Segundo, so 2 women teachers were asked to live in El Segundo and ride the school buses with the students every day to and from that city for an extra $1 a day in pay. In 1923 girls adopted a school uniform, a dark blue skirt with a white midi 30. In 1925 a new fine arts building for the high school was erected on the southwest corner of Grevillea and Manchester, replacing the Truax Candy Kitchen 34, but it was severely damaged by the Long Beach earthquake of 1933. It was later rebuilt with WPA help but lost its magnificent stairway and all its fireplaces. Temporary classrooms were built on Olive Street, all too cold in winter and too hot most of the time. 41. The athletic field on the west side of the campus, later called Badenoch Field, was used for physical education and sporting events. In 1937, agricultural classes were ended at the farm and Sentinel Field was dedicated there for sports activities. By 1938 there were more than 3,000 students and 141 teachers at the high school. 43. The startling news of 1948 was the dismissal of the entire administrative staff at Inglewood High School, beginning with Principal James R. Haynes. He was replaced by Forrest Murdoch of Everett, Washington, as superintendent, and Fred Heisner as principal. 49. In 1952, another secondary school campus in Inglewood was opened in the east side neighborhood of Lock Haven as Morningside High School. 55. Center Park School of Los Angeles became part of the Inglewood School District in 1961 when its area, Crenshaw Imperial, was annexed to the city. 59. In the 1970s, its name was changed to Worthington School to honor Francis and William Worthington. 74. Religion. In 2007, the area served by the Inglewood Post Office, including Lenox, had 98 churches, temples, mosques, chapels, and other houses of worship, according to the AreaConnect.com website. The first church service was held on April 22, 1888, in the Inglewood House Hotel on Commercial Street, today's La Brea Avenue, popularly called Mrs. Belden's boarding house, when Inglewood had only 300 residents and 112 registered voters. Later services were in Bucephalus Hall, but eventually the congregation moved to Hyde Park, which left Inglewood with no church. On January 19, 1890, Inglewood's first permanent church, Presbyterian, was established on Market Street. A bit later the Brethren constructed a building on South Market Street 6, 10, and 17. In 1907, a group of Episcopalians began services in a private home, and a few years later the first Catholic services were held in Bank Hall. In 1910, the Presbyterians moved their two buildings, a sanctuary and a manse, to the corner of Grevillea and Nutwood because the streetcars were so noisy and threw so much dust and sand fleas in the windows. 14 and 17. In 1923, St. John Chrysostom Catholic Church was founded. The current church at the intersection of Centanella and Florence was built in 1959 and is the tallest point in the city. It is the largest congregation in the city, consisting of almost 10,000 registered families. Next door is St. John Chrysostom School, educating children since 1927 from pre-K through 8th grade. B.